Okay.
Already started.
Okay. Lights are on, huh? Yeah. So, well, guys, good afternoon. Yeah. And how are you guys doing? Yeah, everything going well. How many of you are giving mains this year? How many of you are appearing for this mains 2024? Okay. Fine. Okay. None of you are giving this attempt. Why don't you switch outside? None of you are giving this year. Fine. And did anyone join online? So because I'll be orienting my approach depending on whether you're giving mains this year or preparing for next year. Fine, because as I was assuming that people coming for this class will be the ones who are appearing for this 2024 mains. So I came with a different mindset. Fine. So if you're not, those who are preparing for next year, we'll just have a general overall session on answer writing as such, as a whole idea, right? Kalinka, do we get responses of people joining online? Do you send in questions? Tell us there. Fine. So, well, let's start with, without much further ado, and let's take it as a broad answer writing session. Let's talk about answer writing in general. Fine. So, well, I'm sure if not this year, in the coming years, we'll be soon giving your first mains, right? I wish that it happens very soon for you all, right? And so coming to me, like, I hope most of you know me, right? Some of you are new faces here. So I'm Dheeraj. I'm a faculty mentor at LaExcellence. And myself, I've been through 5 civils mains, 4 forest mains, and a couple of interviews in my civil service journey. Since past recent time, I've been into this field of coaching, mentoring, teaching people, preparing for the exam, right? So when it comes to answer writing, answer writing, I believe, is one of the most essential, one of the most key components of anyone's preparation as such. Fine. So to a large extent, once you clear prelims, based on your answer writing skills, your practice, your approach, or your skills with respect to this, largely you can say accumulated skills of answer writing will make or break or will decide your ultimate rank. You can say answer writing is a key strength, key determining factor with respect to your overall result. Fine. And answer writing, it's tested in the main stage. Fine. And apart from this, you want to have any specific questions about it? Let's say, should I go in general, or you want me to address any specific areas of it? I hope most of you may not have started yet, may not have started answer writing by themselves, maybe. Fine. So I'll start from scratch. I'll assume that we can go from level 0 here, right? So when it comes to answer writing, how do you think? What do you think is the idea behind answer writing? You can say, why do you think UPSC has got this answer writing approach? Why didn't they again have an objective kind of a paper in mains? They would have given, a very enlarged objective. Maybe they can have some 8 to 9 papers on objective, nature, right? Thanks, Kalinga. So why did they choose to, not go with the same format, and why did they want a descriptive a descriptive pattern of this testing the aspirants? Fine. Why do you think, or what do you think is the idea behind answer writing, or what is answer writing as such? Apart from the academic perspective, let's say if you look at, please go ahead.
To know the understanding of your...
Okay, understanding of your knowledge. Okay, good. Okay, so you're saying that answer writing, let's say it tests the understanding. It looks into the understanding. Largely the conceptual, the conceptual academic, theoretical understanding. Maybe this would be this knowledge part, this knowledge aspect of it. Fine. Apart from this, what else do you believe about answer writing? What are the notions you have about answer writing? Yeah, it's too difficult to write. Yeah, too much of practice required. Too strainful to write for so many hours. Yeah. What else do we believe? See, answer writing essentially, right. Language, okay, it focuses on language. So your language skills, or your vocabulary skills, some way also do play a role. Fine, we'll understand that to what extent it also determines to what extent is language required, what kind of language is required, in what way it should be presented. That's another factor to understand. Clear? Apart from that, any other ideas, notions about answer writing in general? What do you understand about it so far? What notions you carry about it at this point of time?
How many different approaches you can
Okay.
have to one?
Okay. How many different approaches you have for one specific concept, or saying one specific area, one specific topic? How many different ways you try to approach it? Cool, right? So, well, anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to add to this dimensions of descriptions? Yeah, you can add something. what is answer writing? And why are you writing here? See, answer writing in mains or answer writing in UPSC is a very, you can say, purposeful. It is a very targeted. It's a very directional writing. It's not a random writing. It's not writing for the sake of writing. It's writing for the sake of clearing. Fine. You're writing for the sake of clearing the exam. You're writing for the sake of, you can say, attaining some, you can say, some higher mark or higher score, and also to outpace the competition. You can see it's largely a relative competition here. You have a relative sense of, you can say, understanding or rating, you can say, aspirants based on answer writing. Fine. And if you look into all these ideas which are given are very much essential, very much, you can say, integral to the aspect of writing here. Fine. And more than anything else, let's go into the fundamentals and say what is the fundamental idea, what is the fundamental philosophy of answer writing as such, why answer, you can say, why we are writing answers here. If you look into, see, answer writing is nothing but, you can say, a kind of communication. You can say it's nothing but a communication between you and the examiner, or you can say between you and UPSC. Let's make it as you can say, thing between, or interaction between you and UPSC. Fine. So UPSC won't come to you, won't meet you. It's not possible for UPSC to meet all the lakhs of aspirants, test them, test their skills, test their knowledge, test their preparedness, test their caliber, test their readiness, test their, you can say, level of preparedness for the exam. Fine. And whatever, let's say, whatever probably, you can say, through the journey of preparation, or can say through the journey of your self preparation or coaching, whatever knowledge you have gained, or let's say through your, can say, academic journeys in childhood, and say what you are as a person. Fine. Largely your, can say, knowledge as well as and as well as, you can say, your analytical skills. Fine. Or can say your skills of, you can say, skills of presentation. Fine. Or skills of grasping, or can say broadly can call them as cognitive skills. Fine. It's largely a cognitive process here. Fine. You have to think, analyze, and then present. Fine. So it largely involves cognition and communication. You can say answer writing is largely about cognition and communication. This is very important. Cognition, communication. I'm just giving a very broad thing. We'll go into specifics of it. Just a very broad idea, macro idea. Fine. So cognition means nothing but understanding, can say, analyzing. Cognition means something which has to do with your mind's working. Any process of mind, any process of brain functioning is called as cognitive aspect. Right? Means like what does our mind do or what does the brain do functionally? What is its function? Understand, grasp, observe, analyze, store, register, respond. Fine. All these are, can say, or memorize things, register. Fine. All these are, can say, various cognitive aspects which also play a key role in terms of your building answer writing. Fine. And more than anything else, the purpose here is to communicate. The purpose here is to communicate to the examiner, communicate to UPSC that you are the most fittest one, you are the most able one for this. Can say for this sake of, can say, competition or the specific role of being a civil servant. You want to show that you are eligible for, can say, for the next stage of the exam. Fine. You have the enough prerequisite knowledge, enough prerequisite skills to be passed, to be allowed to the next stage of the exam. Fine. And here comes largely, it's a what kind of expectations do UPSC have from the mains aspirants? Do one thing, just go through the can say notification. The notification which got released before the prelims now somewhere in February. In Feb second week sometime we got the official notification for this year's exam. 2024 notification was given in Feb of this year. Fine. Go through it. So UPSC actually comes up with a description of what exactly they're expecting, from a mains perspective. Fine. They even describe about the personality test. They also give a brief description about the, can say, this mains syllabus also. Can say before you approach the main syllabus, they'll have a brief description there. They'll say that it's largely looking into the general awareness of things. They're expecting you to have a broad general awareness of things, and also your analytical observation learning skills. Fine. And also your presentation skills to some extent. Okay. Some things are told by them, some things are untold by UPSC. Fine. Many things, only few things it does only give a brief understanding. Many things we get to understand based on the competition, the way people have cleared, the way people have scored. Clear? So essentially it's all about communication, because UPSC or the examiner doesn't know you personally. All he knows is your specific roll number attached to the booklet, answer booklet. So beyond the booklet, beyond the answers, beyond the, can say, piece of these papers, they don't know you personally. Fine. So all you have got is that basically it's like, you can say, this answer writing. Let's say when you get this booklet, I think you must have seen the rough can say practice sheets or these booklets, right? Fine. So this is like a playground. This is like your, can say, stage. If you're looking like artist, like if you're a dancer, if you're a singer. So like how you treat a stage, that is kind of, can say, the answer space for you. That is the, can say, exam the answer booklet for you. You have to perform there. All you have to do is perform. So all your, can say, all your knowledge, all your, can say efforts, all these aspects will be reflected only through what is written on this. You might have done a lot, you might have known a lot, you might have prepared a lot, you have maybe a lot of acumen, a lot of knowledge, lot of, we can say, wisdom with respect to things as such, fine. But if you don't present it here, if it is not brought onto this piece of paper, onto this kind of, we can say, this dimensional paper here, it will be of no much, you can say, no much benefit, no much use in terms of getting, because the only reason you're writing for the here, when you're preparing for the exam is you want to be in the service, fine. You want to gain something out of it, fine. And the most, we can say, most essential way to gain here is through scoring more marks in mains, clear? So how do you perform here? How do you kind of present yourself here? Bring your knowledge, bring your, let's say, your skills, bring your academic skills, or can say preparation skills onto the paper, or can say, I call it as translation. How you translate your knowledge onto paper, it's very important, or which we call them also, this translation itself is a performance of the exam. This what is called as mains performance. How you translate your knowledge into, how you reflect the knowledge onto the paper, clear? And there are so many ways, can say, because each of you will be unique, fine. Let's say even if you give a common question to all of you, fine. So when you go for the mains exam, do you think all the 7-8 of you will write same answer for the same question? Even if I give you the same material to prepare, I'll give a material to prepare, I'll give one page of content, I'll give a question in the same content. Even if I make you all write this for the same answer, do you think we'll be presenting similar points or similar approach? To some extent, there'll be similarity because I gave you the content already, I gave you the question also. But largely, you still, even if you prepare from the same source, same question, you appear with the same question, all of you will be having a different, you can say, specific individual approach. And answer writing also has that individualistic character. And it's not just a communication of knowledge, it's also communication or reflection of a personality. The examiner, a matured senior examiner who will be looking at your copy, will also get some idea about what kind of person you are. It may not be very clear, but to some extent they'll get an idea about what kind of personality you are, whether you have objective thinking, you are reasonable, you are logical, fine, you are balanced, you are structured, whether your thinking is structured or not. See, the best answer always is an answer which is simple, clear, and well structured. Okay, to make it more broader, an answer is the best when it is simple and clear, fine. To make it simple and clear, we have to take up many tools. We have to follow many approaches, many tools, many paths you have to take to reach simplicity. Simplicity is not as simple as such, especially because simplicity can be gained, especially when it comes to you can say translating knowledge onto the paper. Because you study many things, gather a lot of knowledge, you accumulate yourself with overload with things, fine. And usually what we do is we tend to present it in some unorganized, random manner. We complicate in terms of writing it, fine. So that is not very much appreciated. The best answer always is simpler one. And simplicity is always gained when you gain hold of subject, when you get matured of subject. In fact, it happens naturally. When someone gains very good hold of subject, gradually his delivery or his writing, everything becomes simpler. When someone is not yet sure, he'll be more confused, more complicated, he'll complicate things for himself and for others also, fine. So answer which is simpler, clear is always the better one, fine. And how to reach it, how to achieve it, that's what we'll be focusing here, clear? So first and foremost, let's start with, when to start, you can say when to start answer writing. Let's start with the basic question. We'll come to how now, because that's the focus. So when to start answer writing is, should we fix any muhurta or Brahma, this kind of, can say, should we follow an astrological system? Should we consult some astrologer, local pandit and all to fix the date? When to start answer writing? When are your stars strong in the right position for that? Yeah. Should we wait for anything as such? According to me, what I believe is, again, there are many different approaches. If you go around the street, if you go around all the institutes, people will give different opinions. And okay, they're right also to carry their own opinion, fine. But there'll be diverse approaches. As one thing I'll say again, answer writing can be approached in diverse ways. There is no one single part to this, fine. Most of the parts or many of the parts can give you results, fine. There is no such, can say, hard and fast or biblical thing that there is only one path for this, clear? So everyone will have their own personalized style, personalized approach. As I said, it reflects your personality also, right? So people are different, their approaches are different, their thinking is different, their perspective is different, they'll also present answers differently, fine. So that is that's what we understand so far. And when to start, whenever you are ready with it, or can say at least you have some basic knowledge of a subject, maybe along with the classes, let's say maybe at least after the first month of preparation, I would say at least from somewhere about second month of a preparation cycle onwards, wherein at least you cover some basics of a subject at least. Or you can say even within the first month, let's say if you get some basic knowledge of the subject to some extent, fine, that's where you should be starting with things, fine. So as early the better, fine. Certainly, like how a baby grows, like the life cycle, answers also will be infant in the beginning. Your answers will be very much, it's immature, not very precise, not very good, not very structured. Gradually, with the life cycle, you can say with continuous efforts, you'll get to learn, let's say through the feedback, let's say when you meet a mentor, when you meet you can say a faculty or evaluator, you'll get specific inputs. From there you get to specifically improve in a very structured manner. Clear? So when to start as early as you can. Let's say if you have covered some basic class of a subject, start with its PYQs, start with maybe you can ask some faculty some questions to give you, fine, to practice, fine, or you can take some questions from NCERTs itself. 11th and 12th NCERTs have some basic questions, even that can be a good source to start with. Or more importantly, the PYQs itself will offer you a lot, you can say a good source to start writing with. Clear? But initially when it comes to PYQs, it can be at times a bit complicated. It will be a bit difficult to understand, interpret the previous year questions, because sometimes they are direct, sometimes they are very much, integrated, and you can say convoluted, where they ask many things. The questions will be a bit complicated and applied. They won't ask directly. They'll test your, understanding, and you can say the deeper knowledge of things. Fine, but still, as many as you can practice, you can say as far as you understand, you can practice PYQs also, or take some basic questions from the institute or some test series, or you can also get some questions. Yeah, please. Okay, so you can also get some idea from the NCERT questions itself. The end of the chapter questions of NCERT also are a good source to start writing with. Here, and further, let's delve more into, let's deeply get into how to write answers, how to write an answer. So as we understand, a best answer is always an answer which is very well structured, or can say it's very well communicated. It has to be well communicated. So when do you start? Let's say when you start communication, let's say you think about even a personal communication. How do you start with? Do you immediately jump? Let's say you're supposed to meet a friend. You want to talk about something. You want to talk about, let's say, some movie you watched, or you want to ask them to meet, or you're talking about some other personal event. You're talking about some other friend to some other friend, right? So usually that's what we do, right? So will you start immediately, or will there be some beginning of the conversation? You say come, you say hi, how are you? Let's say is everything fine. Let's say gradually build the context of the conversation. Fine. So it means you're trying to do some initiation. You have some you introduce the context. You build the context. Fine. So building the context is what I mean as when look into the structure of answer. How would a structured answer look like? So you should be looking into, first and foremost, the basic component, essential component is introduction. You have to start with introducing the answer. So this introduction is nothing but your entry point. Your entry into the it's like setting the context of the answer, setting the context. So basically you're trying to convey to the examiner, the evaluator here, that you understood the question. You know what is the question about. Fine. But let us say the question is about inflation. Let's say in economy, they ask you about what is inflation, what are the various ways to measure inflation, what steps has the government taken as a policy measure in recent times to check inflation. Fine. So introduction can be done in 100 different ways. But essentially, first I'll tell the basics. Later on, you can say as you practice, as you mature more, as your preparation gets, deeper and stronger, we will find many ways to approach this. To write, to frame introductions, there are, multiple ways as such. Clear? First and foremost, so the philosophy here, the idea here is to make the reader understand, make the examiner understand that you know the meaning, you know the context, you know the question, or you know the key idea of the question. So basically, in this question which we discussed, what is the key idea? What is the key notion here? Inflation is the key concept. Inflation is what we're talking about. So one of the most common ways to approach this question would be to define inflation. Definition is one way. You can define inflation. Fine. In a clear term, in a very simpler, very simpler, essential way. Fine. So basically, it should be able to, let's say, your definition should be in such a way that even a 10th class student should be able to understand and get the meaning of it. Fine. The best answers also are those which can be easily understood by even a layman, even a common person can also still understand and read from your answers. Because all the time we can't expect the examiner to have good knowledge. For example, your paper sometimes, even the economic questions can be sometimes evaluated by some non-economy faculty. Fine. It may not be a economic faculty as such. We never know. Actually, we actually don't know exactly what happens in the UPSC examination pattern, or in the process of evaluation. We don't exactly know how the things are evaluated. Fine. Sometimes it can also be possible that some non-subject specific person can also evaluate. Fine. So that's why we're trying to understand that your answer should be kept simple. Fine. The content of it, the communication of it should be very clear and simple. Fine. So whether you can define in a very, very basic way. Apart from this, it can also involve some current affairs context, that's another way, another common way which we do introductions. Fine. So maybe we can talk about some way. You can say that in the recent times, in the recent can say months, we have seen the spike in CPI. CPI has been growing, we can say, continuously. Fine. Due to various factors, there is a food inflation, fuel inflation. Fine. Due to various factors, there has been a kind of, can say, increase in the rate of inflation in recent times. That's all something we can say. So maybe we can also mention some data when it comes to economy answer. Can also probably mention data. Fine. Some 7% CPI, 7.1, something like that. Clear? And if possible, the better way also would be to integrate both. If you can do both. I mean, a better introduction can be also which is giving you you're giving a static definition as well as having a current orientation to the introduction. But yeah, initially you can't try it. Once your preparation, once your revision, preparation, writing practice gets better, you'll be able to develop the skill of integrating both aspects in the same introduction. Clear? That's one common way of understanding introduction. I hope you at least got the idea, the essence of introduction. Fine. It's very important to at least have a brief introduction. Fine. You start any answer. For example, we have two types of answers here. We have two types of answers, 15 marker and you can say 10 marker. If you go to optionals, there will be even different questions. For example, there will be 20 marker questions, 25 marker questions at times. But in general, let's look from a GS perspective, 15 markers and 10 markers. Fine. 15 markers, how many pages you get to write? You get 3 sides of paper. In 10 marker, you get 2 sides to write. Clear? This is, you can see the space limitations. Fine. And here, because we have much more space, much more bigger stage to perform, as we understand, here the introduction size should be usually, if you ask about how long should be introduction, ideally for 15 marker, it should be somewhere about 4 to 5 lines, not more than 5, because it might compromise on your time and space. If you write much longer introductions, you'll be missing out on the main body. You'll be missing out on the essential demand of the question. Fine. So it's better to write, or can skip the introduction, a bit brief and specific. Clear? So as far as possible, can say can sum it up in, let's say, some 4 to 5 lines here. 4 to 5 lines. When it comes to the 50 marker, 10 marker, you can keep it to somewhere about 2 to 3 lines. You can keep it around 2 to 3 lines. Here, this can be the standard way. So at least even if it is shorter, sometimes you might be very much, you can say, short of time. It might be the last question you're writing in the exam. You don't have time at all. Fine. In such cases, you can at least write a one-liner, 1.5 line introduction also. That's still be able to, you can say, satisfy the demand. Or in some extreme cases, in the extreme of extreme cases, it will happen certainly when you start writing mains exams, let's say in the time frame, you understand how difficult it is to manage time. I'll come to that aspect also, how to manage time in the mains answers. Fine. So for this, you can say, let's say in the worst case, maybe you can skip. In the worst of the worst case, when you have no chance, it might happen that they have just half a minute, examiner already started to collect the answers from others. Fine. In the exam I'm talking from the final, the real exam scenario. Maybe you're some lucky, you got some 7th or 8th bench, and from the first bench you already started to take papers from them. Fine. So you hardly have any, I can say, few minutes left, 2-3 minutes left. So in that time, you don't have enough to do on the introduction level. You directly go with what exactly is asked. Fine. You directly meet the exact demand of the question. Fine. We directly talk about, okay, if it's talking about what are the ways of measuring inflation, just give the ways of measuring. If there's any specific formula of measuring, just mention that. Fine. So directly go to or directly hit the demand of the question. If you don't have much time, that's what you do. I mean, you can skip sometimes, but ideally you should not skip. Ideally, even if you're having crunch of time, you maintain it in at least a brief way, at least have a small introduction at least. So at least having no introduction, or can say having a small introduction or a brief one, is at least better than having none at all. Yeah? So that's why I said, if you're balancing yourself from the beginning, from the first question itself, you're not writing too long answers, you're keeping it specific, you're keeping it to the point, and you're managing the time since first answer. Even if you come to the 20th answer also, you'll still be able to manage time. I will talk about the management aspect also separately, but just briefly about what introduction can be about. And again, when it comes to introduction, each subject will have a different style, or can say different, you can take a different approach, different style of introduction, different way of building up the answers, context in different subjects too. In economy, you have one way, you can follow one way. History, you have a specific way. For example, when we talk about history, you basically introduce by largely, basically before Guptas came to power, fine, or what conditions have led to the emergence of Guptas, who have the Guptas replaced. So before Guptas period, in the post-modern period, what are the brief conditions? So you will try to link with the past, fine, and the main body would be about, the main body of the answer would be about the present, the present question asked. And the conclusion will be about the future. We'll come to conclusion also. Conclusion would be about linking to the future. Clear? But yeah, anyways, let's stick to introduction here. And okay, this approach of definition applies to almost all the subjects. If you don't have any other thing in mind, at least identify the key concepts, keywords in the question, define them. That will be a safest way to introduce in any area, any subject. Clear? In subjects like polity, governance, constitution, economy, agriculture, science and tech, IR, security, disaster management, you have a lot of scope for bringing current affairs also. Fine, especially in your GS to GS3 areas, you have a lot of scope to bring in current affair dynamic aspects also. Fine. Dynamic, you understand, dynamic means something changes. Your current affairs is dynamic, it keeps flowing, right? And your static knowledge, which is the theoretical knowledge of subjects, that is something which is not so easily changing, unchanging. Fine. So, and definitions are largely, as I understand, they are static aspects. Fine. So you can mix static and dynamic, or you can at least keep, if you're not very sure about the current, at least you can give the static understanding. Yeah. So that's about, you can say, the essential element of introduction. Fine. This is the first component, the first section of your answer anywhere. Fine. And apart from this, the second most important element, or can say the second most important structural component of your answer is, or which we commonly call it as the body. Body in the sense, body is the essential. It is the most essential and relevant, essential and asked aspect. It is it is directly asked in the question. It is the asked aspect. What they're asking you. For example, they might ask you to list the causative factors. For example, if you talk about Indian freedom movement, they might ask you about mentioning and describing the essential factors which have influenced the rise of nationalism in India. Or let's say some factors which have led to the entry of British into India. Or let's say if you talk about let's say judiciary, let's say if you talk about let's say judicial, the question is about judicial appointments, fine, in GS2. So the body would be, I mean, they might ask you about how the judicial appointments are done. What are the various legal constitutional provisions which talk about appointments, who has powers to appoint, what is the procedure followed to appoint, all these specific things. So basically body would address what is directly mentioned and asked to you by the exam setter, right? So this is actually where you can say the marks largely get scored, or can say that's which is largely weighed. Introduction always may not have specific marks as such. Means introduction may not have a separate marks. In the test series which you write, maybe they'll be showing you that like introduction you got some 1 mark, body they gave you 3 marks, conclusion they gave 1 mark. For a practice sake we do that, but when you go to the let's say the final stage as such, UPSC may not be having specific marks for specific parts. Means for example, when I'm talking about structure, I said we'll be having a 3-dimensional structure: introduction, body, conclusion. This is the most common way of writing any answer as such. Writing an answer or a small essay, any piece of writing should be having an introduction, the main body and conclusion. Even if you take any paper article also, you'll be studying editorials in the paper. They'll also introduce, set the context in the beginning, then they'll talk about the essential subject they wanted to discuss, and at the end of it, they'll try to give some, they convey some final idea. They'll give some takeaway, fine. They'll give some final observation, that is conclusion. Clear? So this introduction, body, conclusion is not just only unique to this UPSC answer writing. Generally, most of the structured writings, purposeful writings will always have this pattern, right? Like in school, we used to write letters, report writing, letter writing we used to have in schools, no? So they also have the same pattern, introduction, body, conclusion, more or less same pattern will be applicable, can be practiced in UPSC answer writing too. Clear? So this is about, the structure, the basic parts of the structure. Let's come to the most important one, the body of the answer. So in the body, it's all about, the most important aspect would be about content. You should write the relevant content, what is directly asked. So most often what we do is, we don't write what they ask, we write what we know. That's a problem. That's actually one major reason why most of the candidates, even despite having a lot of knowledge and putting a lot of efforts for preparation, they fail to translate it onto the paper because they don't exactly look into the demand of the question. Fine. For example, they'll see some question like, they'll see inflation. They'll start writing whatever they know from its birth to from its end. All the story, Ramayana, Mahabharata, they know about inflation. They'll put it there. Fine. They'll not exactly look into what is the specific detail asked. Are they asking about ways of measurement? Are they asking about, let's say, what leads to increase? How can you control? I mean to say the specifics are lost. They largely try to dump everything they know. I mean to say, they'll not keep relevance. So relevance is quite important. I'm telling you, the examiner is not at all interested to know. It's not a place to show off your knowledge as such. Yeah, showing off is required, but showing off in a structured way, relevant way. You have to present your knowledge. have to present, you have to boast that you know more, but that should still be relevant. That should be presented in a way, the content should be molded in a way that it is fitting the demand of the question. That's more important. Like today we are doing this some general session. Later on, maybe in the coming days, we'll plan some sessions where we'll be writing answers live. Fine. So there I'll explain you more specifics. Today it's just about, you can say, this general orientation for you. Maybe in the coming week, mid of the next week or next weekend, we'll plan sessions for live answer writing. We'll take questions. I'll write with you more or less. I'll give you some key approaches. So if we take some examples, take some questions, we'll write down what can be a better introduction, what can be the specific parts of the body, what can be the conclusion like. Clear? So it should be relevant. That's more important. Second most important thing is content. See, content is the king. Content is the king for you. In the body, content is the king. Content means the knowledge part, the knowledge aspect. Knowledge should be presented effectively. In what way it should be presented? In what way you should give knowledge, or say in what way you should convey knowledge to them, to the exam evaluator. In what way should we convey the knowledge to them? First, as we understood, in a relevant way, it should be relevant, and it should be also coherent. It should also be coherent. Coherent means, what is coherent? Coherent, we say coherence, means there should be some link, some flow. Coherence means it can be about flow, some organized flow, some organic flow, we say organic. What is organic? Yeah, organic foods, this, yeah, not about organic food. It's organic means natural. It should be like a natural flow. Means your answer should be having, when each points you're writing in a sequential manner, they should have some proper connection between them. There should be some pattern of, you can say, flow of the answer. It should not be like some abrupt, suddenly you're talking something in first point, second point you're going somewhere else, third point you're coming somewhere else, fourth point you're losing, where you have no idea where you are. Fine. So basically there should be some organization of thoughts. So coherence is about organizing thoughts, organization. So I told you, right, your exam, your answer is not only about your knowledge, it's about personality. The reader will see, if you're writing relevantly and coherently, he'll know about you as a person. He can see whether you're a clear person, whether you're an organized person, your thinking is structured, are you disciplined, are you to the point, fine, are you effective, can say thinker, or can say a clear conveyor, he'll try to understand, fine. So this is very important. Coherence, most of the people will also lack it. There will be no proper linkage between the points they write. There is no proper organization of points. For example, coherence also means sometimes prioritization of points, prioritization. See, there will be 10, 12 points maybe if you want to write up an answer. If you have 10 to 12 points to make there, fine. So it's also important, what should be your first point, what should be your last point. What comes first, what comes second, what comes on the 12th position. I'm going to say the most important ones, the most relevant ones should come first. That is prioritization of points. Content is just not dumping there. You're not just throwing some, just some things and dumping on the paper randomly. It should be also prioritized. The most relevant, most important point should be placed first, gradually with decreasing, because it's again psychology here. Answer writing is also largely about playing with the psychology of the examiner, this examiner, or can say this evaluator. Fine. See, no one would be having attention span of more than, can say, few minutes, couple of minutes, or even sometimes couple of seconds. If someone is like us, they'll be having even lesser attention span. Fine. So they'll be, if they're not finding the required thing, they'll easily lose interest in an answer. Once they have a glance on an answer sheet, they'll see they hardly spend 1 to 2 minutes for each answer. Unlike in institutions, we do evaluation much more detailed way, because we're supposed to help you, train you, and they can say make you practice. But when you go to the last stage in the final, because UPSC examiners won't be giving you so much of time for each question. They won't read each and everything in detail as such and understand and then analyze and then give you marks. They're enough and enough experience. With just one quick glance, they'll get to know whether you're mentioning, whether you're kind of, you can say, writing, you can say you're brought in the specific relevant content or not. If they don't find anything relevant, at least in the first 3-4 points, they'll say, okay, they'll see the first point, okay, if it is not, okay, if it's somewhere still not relevant, they'll see, okay, maybe she has mentioned or he has mentioned second point. If that is also not giving them what they're expecting, they'll probably see third, maybe to give a chance if they're more kind. Fine. If the third point also is not talking about what is required in the answer, they'll probably lose interest and probably assume that you probably have no idea what the question is, and they'll award you maybe poor marks. Clear? So always prioritization is important, then also organization of points in a structured way, in a more coherent way is important. So we'll come to this. We'll also talk about how to organize, how to structure to some extent later. Fine. But these are some essentials about the main body. Fine. And apart from content, the next most important aspect is structuring. Structuring is very important. How do you structure, or can say structuring and presentation. Both are very important ideas. Both are very important principles across all the subjects, across all the kind of can say answers to write, even when it comes to essays also to some extent. Yeah. So how do you structure answer? Structure means, what is structure? Structurization. Structuring means basically what are the various parts and what are the different components you are, or can say, bringing in the answer. Into what different ways, in what different levels you are, can say, dividing your answer points. Clear? So structuring basically means how do you join all the knowledge you have, how do you connect all the knowledge you have, how do you present it in a clear manner. Clear? So structuring would be largely about, can say, specific parts. Example, you might have, let's say, some 10 to 15 points about the answer, but you might still try to segregate them into some subtopics, or can say subheadings, headings and subheadings. Fine. You can still divide them into headings and subheadings. Fine. Divide them into headings and subheadings. Right. And in fact, more importantly, even more basic, at the basic level, you'll have a question about, like, the most fundamental thing which people ask is, like, how to write. Should we write in paragraphs, or should we write in pointer format? Paragraph, or pointer. So what is the way to present? Fine. So structuring, presentation more or less are interlinked here. So whether you take a paragraph approach or a pointer format, most of us coming out of college, we are used to this, can say, this paragraph kind of a presentation. Fine. We usually write like stories, like, can say, this the small essays as such. Fine. Like in during our college days. So we'll be having very less knowledge, but we have to present, fill pages more. So we'll be in the urge to fill more pages, write Ramakadas, Krishna Mahabharatas and all. Fine. So but here you have specific space limit, not only time limit, you have space limit also. You can't just write whatever you know. It has to be presented in a very precise and a succinct way. It has to be very much specific. Fine. And my suggestion would be largely, especially when it comes to GS. In GS, follow largely pointer format. That is safe. It will be easy also for you. It will be more easy for the evaluator also. Fine. In GS papers, largely you can take a, please.
Sir, the pointer format should be...
Yeah, we'll talk about that too. What kind of pointers you can say. Okay, let me make it clear itself. Okay, pointers. What kind of point format you can use here? So I think, sorry, let's finish the question. I interrupted you. Yeah, please.
Should we use numbers,
Yeah.
Roman numerals,
Right.
star, points,
Okay.
bullets?
Right, okay.
Like the evaluators are old people, so
Yeah.
they won't be counting how many points they have written. So should we use numbers, Roman numerals, or...
You can use any of them, all of them, or mix of them too. It's the only thing you're not asking. Anything else is there as a follow-up? Fine. So how do you represent the pointers? See, there are many ways. For example, there are, like, can say bullet points, which can be made in many ways. I'm sure you will know much more designs than me, right? So this is symbolically, you have some ways to represent. Fine. Or you can go for the 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, right? Or this any kind of a structure, or can say these are various ways in which you can take it up. Fine. All of them can work. Fine. So here I'll give you some ideas. My personal suggestions, or out of my experience, out of my own, you can say, wisdom of the exam so far. You can better mix and match them. Don't repeat the same thing across all answers. If I have 20 answers, try to use different formats. Let's say in one answer you have written only follow this format, or let's say this format around bubble as such. Clear? So repeat in one answer. Second answer, you try a different approach, try different can say marking, or even within the same answer, we have different parts. Right? I was talking about within the body also you have different parts, 2, 3 subheadings, 2, 4, 5 different. Let's say sometimes when you go to 15 markers, you can also get 3 different parts of the question. For example, let's say there will be a question which asks you about the reasons behind something, yeah, the positive aspects of something, negative aspects of something, and what has been the impact. 3 to 4 different things about the same concept or same area can be asked. So in that, what we'll do is basically you divide the body into so many parts, 3 parts or 4 parts or 2 parts. In 10 markers, usually we have 2 parts or 3 part questions. 15 markers will have at least 3 to 4 parts being asked usually. Fine. So when you divide into parts also, in one part you can try different symbols again. Fine. You're free to do that. Fine. But my personal observation additionally also is that try to follow any of these. Why so? Why I'm saying numbers or alphabets? Again, the psychology of the examiner. You can quantify them. He'll know, okay, he or she has written 15 points, 5 here, 4 here, 6 here, like that. He'll be able to count. Fine. If you're writing more points and showing him that, see, look at my answer, old fellow, I'm writing some 15, 16 points, he'll be compelled, he'll be forced to at least give you not less than some mark. Got the answer? I mean, you got the point. For example, I have a friend, she recently got into IPS, some 200 ranks she has got. I've seen from her answers, not many years we used to study together. So I've always observed that she has followed this pattern. Fine. For example, she'll start the first point with number 1. Let's say even if, let's say, in the main body of the question, you might be having 3 parts. Let's say, right? 3 parts we'll have. Let's say, fine. This is about the reasons or factors. This about the positives, or can say the advantages of something. This about, you can say, the disadvantages of some policy or some kind of application. Fine. So this is, let's say, you have 3 different parts in the body here. What she would do is, she'll start, let's say, if you're writing 4 points here, 1, 2, 3, 4 she'll do. And many times what we do is, when we go to the second part of the answer of the body, what we might do is, we'll again say 1, 2, 3, 4. But she won't do that. She would continue 5, 6, 7, 8, and she'll go up to how many ever she was writing. So what is the idea here? Yeah, those many points she's writing. She's telling him clearly, you can't award me less than some mark. You can't give me less than average marks. You should definitely give me more than average. And if you're also writing coherently, if you're writing relevantly, he is compelled, the hands are tied of the evaluator, he can't award you less marks. Yeah, this is also one way. Yeah, this can again be mixed and match. See, in some questions you can try this format. In some other questions you can mark them separately also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is fine. That's also not a problem. I'm sure the evaluator will have basic math skills. They'll get to know how many points are written. That's also fine. Or you can also try this here and there. Actually, you can make it interesting by trying different forms also. Fine. In some answers you try this format, in some other answers you try different format. See, the question basically, let's say, whenever you're confused, let's say, think about 2 approaches, 2, 3 approaches. If you're confused which approach to use, the best approach is try all of them, integrate them, mix and match them, balance them. Clear? So because you have more scope, almost of 15, 20 questions being asked. In optional, you'll write some 18, 19 questions. In GS, you'll write some 20 questions. Clear? So you can also try different kind of structuring presentation skills as such. So this is one aspect. So see, this is again not a problem. I won't discourage you completely. You can still, if you're more comfortable with this can also be tried. But at least bring some numbers, or you can say the alphabetical thing anywhere, because it will be helping the evaluator to have an idea about how many points, how much of content you have written. Yeah, that's also something you can keep in mind, right? So can get back to the basics here. So parts we understood. So you have to, yeah. And one more thing about the parts of the answer, very important. Parts of an answer, or can say parts of a question. So when you see a question, the first and foremost thing after reading any question would be, after reading any mains question would be, to identify how many parts a question has. Fine. Do we have any example question here? Let's say, I think the internet is live. No. Okay. Okay, let me take something. Is it good? How to type here? Okay, well, let's take a example as such. That's easy. So let us say we talk about, let's say, which subject you want: history, geography, yeah, economy, polity. Which subject you want a practice question to be from? Yeah, which area you are more interested? Yeah. Let us say economy. Let's say, fine. So economy, we have let's say we have an area called let's say we talk about manufacturing sector. In economy, we have 3 major sectors of the economy: manufacturing sector, or the secondary sector of industry. We have, fine. So in India, there's a problem with respect to the contribution of the secondary sector, or especially the manufacturing sector, to GDP. It has always been low. It has hardly improving since decades. Since decades, it is somewhere about 16% of GDP. Fine, and we have taken several policy efforts recently through Make in India, etc. Fine, to improve, to push up this. You can say this GDP performance and contribution of the manufacturing sector in terms of its job creation, in terms of its production, in terms of its exports rate as such. Clear? So let us say the question is about manufacturing. Fine, they're asking you with respect to, let's say, manufacturing sector. They've asked you about, okay, they give a statement: India's manufacturing, you can say, capacity has been in a stagnant level, which hasn't been improving much since years. Fine. So this is a statement they give. Fine. These statements sometimes are a key for you to just understand what is the context. If you understand what the question is about. It's just, you can say, just to tell you about the essential thing to be focused in the question here. And then they'll follow up, they'll say that, okay, discuss the various reasons behind the lagging of, you can say behind the weakness of manufacturing sector in India. Fine, that's one thing. Second, they may continue saying that, so what are the various strengths which the Indian economy has to improve its manufacturing base? Or they might also ask later, what are the various steps taken by government to improve manufacturing? Fine. And third, they'll suggest what are the challenges which we still face in terms of improving manufacturing. Even after so many steps have been taken, policies have been introduced, that's more than 8 to 9 years since Make in India has come into picture, why we haven't seen the results yet? Fine. So how many parts do we see in this question? Yeah. Why the problems of manufacturing sector, why it is weak? Second, what steps are taken, what advantages we have, what are the problems? Almost 4 parts. Fine. So each of this, so that is what your first focus should be. You should divide, for example, you'll get a question like this. You'll get a question, long question. So you should try to identify, you should break parts in the question. You should read the question, identify, okay, this first part, the second part, third part, fourth part. Fine. That is one of the first things you should do after reading a question. And these are the parts of your body. These are the parts of your body, the essential, you can say, target area. Clear? And introduction, as we discussed, through any means, through definition or context or current affairs, you'll introduce and then address these 3 or 4 specific parts. Usually in 15 markers, you'll have 3 to 4 parts. In 10 markers, they'll give you hardly 2 parts or 3 parts at times. I mean, that's how probably you'll find the scope of the question to be. Clear? 50 markers, you'll have a much more scope of a question to be asked. Clear? So this is something you should do. Division of parts. In fact, what you can do sometimes is you can just take some questions, divide into many parts. That's how you should practice. Practice dividing. Say this will take some time to build, let's say internally in you. Kind of can say as a stimulus, as a kind of can say a quick response to a question stimulus. Question is given to you as a stimulus, you'll respond to it. So it will take some time. Practice practice. Take a question. Identify how many parts you can make out of it. Fine. Sometimes some parts are very clearly given. Sometimes some parts are given. For example, okay. Once what might happen is, or in some cases what might happen is, they'll talk about what are the problems of sector, what steps the government has taken, fine, and they'll stop it there, fine. So you'll talk about what are the problems, what steps government has taken, fine so far, but they're not asking you probably, I mean, they haven't directly asked you what else can be done, what more can be done, what more can be done. Okay, I'll give you probably a different question, you'll understand. Fine, let's talk about Panchayat Raj system in India, Panchayat Raj institutions, the local self-governance bodies. Okay, in the question maybe they ask you about the origins of them, the constitutional provisions, fine, and let's say the problems which they're facing. Let's say these 3 things are asked directly, fine, but they didn't ask you one thing directly, but which you should be mentioning very much essentially. What is that missing thing here, which they haven't directly asked, but is still expected from you indirectly? That sometimes they call it as the unasked part. These are all asked parts, directly visible. These are asked parts. There is some unasked thing. It happens that sometimes with the close people, with the parents, or with any close one, we won't ask something. We'll feel it, but we just expect them to do it without asking them directly. If they don't do, we'll say, you didn't understand me, you didn't understand against my intentions. Similar, UPSC also will say, if you don't write such unasked parts of the answer, that you didn't understand the intention of UPSC, you're not close to him, right? You're not close to UPSC. I mean, you didn't get the feel of UPSC, the idea of UPSC. Yeah. So unasked part here is solutions for the problems. You're talking about what was the origin of Panchayat system, how it's functioning, the provisions, the problems. Will you just stop at problems? You can't. And it's again a matter of personality here. Especially as an individual or also as a civil servant, you should be solution oriented. You should be giving solutions, answers. You're not just talking about problems, okay, problems here, problems financially, problems operationally, problems legally. You're not just talking about problems, you should give solutions to. For example, maybe you talk about various sources. For example, Niti Aayog might have given some suggestions to improve. Second, ARC report has given various suggestions to strengthen the system, or some committees or some experts, or through some other source of preparation, you'll be getting some ideas about how to reform the Panchayat Raj system as such. Fine. So you can mention 4 to 5 of them. You can mention some good examples. You can mention some states, some districts where they have brought in some reforms in Panchayat Raj system. Fine. They have given more scope for women leaders to come into politics. Like some states like Jharkhand, etc. have given 50% reservation for women in Panchayat Raj. Fine. That's a best case. We call it as best practices. Fine. So such things I can also mention in the answers as such. Clear? Well, so this is about largely some of the key elements of the answer body, right? Structuring, presentation, fine. And we also talk about, apart from how you divide the answer into parts, now let's talk about within each part, how you write each one point, how you write specific point. Within a part, we talk about 4 to 5 points in a part, let's say each part you make in answer should be at least having 3 or 4 points, minimum 3, maximum 5. 6 and all will sometimes become overdoing it. Then you will lose time and you will affect the overall, you can say, management of time, the question in the required time. Clear? So essentially, within each part, you should have at least 3 to 4 specific, independent, relevant points, right? So again, you can write them as, let's say, independent. I can say, let's say you gave one, let's say you're talking about the various factors behind something, factors or reasons. Fine. So we can mention 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can write them as plain points. Let's say like a simple point you can write. Fine. And out of this, the key aspects you can also underline. You can also make some underlining, which are the keywords, key points. That's one way. That's the most common way, easiest way. Or if you want to do it better, improve it even better, you can start each point with a subheading. This is a heading, and we have subheadings for each point. Subheadings will essentially talk about the theme or idea of the point. For example, in this point, you're talking about, let us say you're talking about the GDP contribution. Fine. So here your subheading would be GDP share or GDP contribution. So and so how much you'll mention briefly. So subheading format is also very good way to keep it brief. And even the advantage here is the evaluator will, when looks at your answer, he'll get easily understanding of what all you have written about. So basically, it also improves visibility. It also improves the visibility of content, what you're writing, visibility of knowledge. So visibility of content is the advantage of this subheading. And also, once you start practicing that, you realize that with subheadings, you can use lesser words because the subheading itself will convey a lot of meaning. So here the description can be short. You will be able to keep the description short and it's crisp. Fine. And one more thing, as a principle, you can keep in mind in the body of the answers, anywhere, any part of the answer as such, don't elaborate too much. Don't elaborate too much. That's not very suitable, especially for GS answers, because you don't have enough time and space. You can't elaborate too much. So what I call it as, you might ask how much elaborate? Elaborate sufficiently. Sufficiently. I call it as sufficient elaboration. Not too much, not too less. The idea should be conveyed, the message should be conveyed. Fine. So the evaluator is not going to check about the language or grammar and all, they won't check much. Even if the grammar goes slightly here and there, it's still okay. But the idea, the knowledge should be conveyed clearly in sufficient words. Okay, if you still want me to give more specific, I can say mention of it. In GS, any point should not be more than 2.5 lines. Maximum is 2.5. In fact, if you see toppers answers nowadays, you'll see that they'll only write 1.5 lines. They'll keep a subheading. They'll write just 1.5 line. And sometimes they'll also they give examples for the points. So this is something I'm adding you additionally. So as let's say if writing 4 to 5 points, at least give examples for 1 or 2 points. Fine. Write a statement, make a statement, point, exemplify, give supporting idea. Fine. Real examples, or can say any you can say data, etc. Any statistic you can mention, or you can say any case study. Fine. Any observation of real. For example, ethics, you can talk about your personal life examples also. You can bring such kind of things into your answers. Clear? So exemplification, even though they don't ask from you in the question statement clearly, give examples. Even then, you should give examples. Even if you don't ask, also you should give examples. And nowadays, we are seeing that examples are gaining more weightage. Because example, if you write a small point, even with lesser words, finish a point and give good example, the examiner will understand that you have more clarity, you know the thing better. Examples are very effective in terms of conveying to the evaluator that you have hold of the subject or the point, you know it very well. Because once you relate with examples, that will tell the other person that you have clarity, you have hold of this thing. Okay, that's one of the most significant element. And this is also examples, also something which will differentiate your answers, your points from the others. In the competition, the quality of examples you write, not only quantity of examples, the kind of quality of examples which you present will also make a difference. For example, in ethics, if we talk about where examples are more often used, mostly people talk about lives of, can say examples from Gandhiji's life, Ambedkar's life, Nehru's life, or generally some other philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, etc. Or Vivekananda. It's a more commonly dealt, most commonly understood. Everyone mostly will be writing about Gandhi's philosophy, Ambedkar's philosophy. Fine. Maybe here you can try something new. You can try something and say some important idea, some important person, but less known, less used. Fine. Got the idea? I mean to say, the idea here is the example should be unique. What I'm trying to say is, your examples, if they become unique, which are not very commonly used by others, Fine. If everyone is giving the same example, for example, if you see the NCERTs and our books, school books, there will be some examples. Example, even the teachers also teach the same examples. Everyone will talk about the same examples. Like for something, there will be one example. Fine. But here, if you try different examples, so you can say bring uniqueness in examples also. That is one way of gaining competitive advantage over your other competitors, so you can say other aspirants. And because more or less, if content to large extent, if it's still it's on same lines of others, examples will differentiate between the better and the less better answer. Fine. There has some elements here. Hope you're able to follow so far. Getting some hang of things. Fine. And within this also, if you go into further aspect, let's say now I mentioned this, can say this points together here. If let us say the same thing, I'll try to tell you about indentation. Let's say how do you also focus on aesthetics, or you can say the visibility, presentation of the point here. For example, let's say if I'm writing points like this, like let's say let's say this is one serial way, linear way, I'm writing points here. Just you can say one, like how let's say you write in how you have points in the newspaper in one collection. Fine. One arrangement here. Fine. This is, let's say, this one way of, let's say, how the answer is looking like. And here we have an answer which has, let's say, a specific, specific pattern of even, can say, presentation or indentation or spacing. Fine. Which looks better? You're all clumsily putting one after other point linearly, which is visible, which is clear. Second one, and here you put in some examples, that with a specific, see how much gap is there from the margin. With some specific margin, you are following it, some specific gapping and spacing. These are all small things, but they'll matter a lot eventually. Fine. But you will gradually add them. You can't do everything overnight. Fine. You can't build everything overnight. These are things you can keep in mind gradually. You can try one after other. First, you should get the basics right. Later on, you can add. In fact, I can tell many more things, but at this stage, there's more than enough. When it comes to the structuring aspects, what you're talking about. This is something you can say. This is about, you can say, space management. You can say how do you manage the space and how to make it more visually appealing. Visibility are improving, making it appealing also. It will look neat and clear. Fine. And to make one more thing to give it always is, as I was saying, it's about the psychology of the exam evaluator. Yeah, you can say the paper evaluator. So the best way to gain marks, best way to make him happy is, maybe that fellow might have fought with his wife and come to the exam hall, this evaluation room, or fought with, or can say he was not happy. He had a bad morning, he had a bad coffee, bad tea, not proper breakfast. He has probably got, maybe UPSC has not given him proper food, only given some samosas and chai, right? He's not happy with this. But so basically, he might be in many different states of mind. So the best way for you to, as you can say, get his positive focus or his pleasant, focus there is, make his job easier. Don't frustrate him. Make his job easier. Means, see, if you write in this way, if you just dump whatever you know in random ways, see, a patient evaluator might still try to read it and go through your points and still see if you have knowledge, if you mention it or not. If you have done the justice for the question or not. Fine, but you can't expect everyone, every evaluator, every time to be so patient and so kind to you. Fine, you can't take that risk. So your job is to make his job easier. As much as you make his job easier, that will be the better way to gain more marks. The more you make his job easier, the more you make him easy to evaluate, quickly run through, making the structuring very clear, presentation, visibility, everything is, let's say, right in the shape. You're writing points in a prioritized way, preferential way, the most important points coming across. You can see everything what you're writing. You're given examples, you're given all the we'll talk about some elements like some additional, you can say, add-ons like maps, diagrams, figures, etc. If you put all of them and do the right, you can say in the right way, or can say in the right content, coherent and relevant way for presenting, you have there are very less chances that you'll get lesser score or poor score. Or let's say, as you make his job easier, he will also make your job easier. Your future, you can say, more simpler, right? Your future better. Fine. So that's something you should keep in mind. Make the evaluator's job easy. Don't make him frustrated. Don't make him irritated. So that's, if you have that idea in mind, you'll know what not to do also. Yeah, the answer. Don't strike too often. You can strike sometimes. It's human. You're not a robot. You're not a AI chat GPT. You just the question, you're generating points as such. Fine. You can go wrong. You can do some striking here and there, but not too much. Not, you can say, too often, not too, you can say, randomly as such everywhere. Fine. These are about some of the key ideas. So this is about, you can say, the main body. So basically, I'm dealing with all the essentials of answer writing from a structured approach, from the IBC approach, introduction, body, conclusion approach. I'm trying to deal with things. Clear? So presentation, we understood the most essentials. In fact, we can do more. So now we'll talk about in the main body, one additional thing to talk about will be the, as I said, add-ons. Some add-ons you can give, some additional, or can say we can call it as value additional aspects. Value additional aspects. So sometimes because UPSC is all about differentiation, see it's a competition. UPSC is not meant for selection. UPSC is meant for filtering out competition. UPSC exam is largely about removing it, or can say taking out the competition, not choosing the right ones. It's about removing the not fit ones. Fine. So it's not directly a selection process. It's a filtration process basically. They're filtering out who is not fit. Fine. So in this extremely cutthroat competition, and one more thing as you might have already understood is, UPSC is not difficult because of its subject, I can say scope or the syllabus, or I can say depth of things required, or the knowledge aspect. Given time, most of the aspirants, any average mind can grasp, understand, comprehend the syllabus area. These are not some Greek and Latin or rocket sciences to not be understood. Fine. Most of the average minds can understand these aspects. But where it becomes difficult for us, the competition makes it difficult altogether. It's all this numerous, this extremely severe competition makes it all the difficult. Fine. Because examiners will find it too difficult to differentiate between the answers. Most of them will be of decent level, but they have to mark it. They have to mark some answers more, some answers less. Fine. And you can't take any chance. And you have to do your best. You have to deliver your maximum best there. Fine. And we always try to, our focus should be that how should we do better than the next person, or can say from the other person. Fine. How can our answer be better, unique, different, additional, special value? That's what we call it as value addition. Example, this one question, inflation, about these things, all of them will write the same answer, more or less same content, 50-60%, with some difference in presentation format. The structuring format will differ to some extent, but more or less the essential idea is the same. But apart from the essential ideas, apart from the key ideas of the question, what else can you do? What else can you do to make the evaluator happy, to make him impressed? So this is value addition is like that, that impression wala thing. I mean, you gain more impression. I mean, you try to impress him, you try to give that factor. You should read and it's like, okay, this is great, I mean, something great she has written or he has written. Fine. That is what you're aspiring for. This is for that extra half or 1 mark, which will differentiate it from the competition. And if you pick half mark in every question, that is almost 10 marks in the entire paper. And overall exam, if you see, each paper 10 marks means almost 60-70 marks of addition. Fine? You're getting it? So, all the small time, in fact, exam is not won at the larger level. Exam is won at the specific micro level. At the smallest level, you make a change, you win. You can't make differences at the broad level, macro level. I hope you're able to follow what I'm trying to say. In each answer, each subpart of the answer, you make improvements, you do better. That's where you gain from. Fine? So you can't overall change the paper, right? I mean, you can't do some magic and you can improve the things as such. You have to make betterments, improvements, enhancement in each subpart part of the answer, part of the question. So the struggle is beyond a point. Let's say after you reach some level, after you finish your foundation coaching, you do some preparation basically, then you go for the next stage of preparation. So once your base is done, later on you only try to, the most focus, the greater focus tends to be upon value adding, so that you get the competitive advantage. And after your basic preparation, after 1.5 year basic preparation, you will get to a decent level. But from there, it's all about leveling up. We call it as leveling up. You have to grow step by step. Fine. That's what even the senior aspirants do with their attempts. As they'll keep improving their approaches, their strategies. Fine. Okay, let's cut short this and come to what can be done in the value additional dimension of answers. Here there are 101 things we can talk about. Fine, but let's talk about few of them. In the later sessions, maybe we'll add more. But as far as possible, the essential one we'll talk about. Fine. See, value addition can be, for example, let's take the same case of, inflation question we're talking about, right? So inflation question, we discuss about all the dimensions we have written. Apart from this, let us say if one person, let's say if I have drawn one graph, I draw a graph and show the levels of inflation over the past, you can say past years, 2008, 2009, 2011, 2012, 2015, 2016, or something like that. Fine. So I'll show the fluctuations in, I'll label the figure also and say inflation variations, or inflation fluctuations. Fine. So I'm just giving a rough example. So what I'm trying to show is, apart from what is asked, I'm giving them more additional information that how inflation has been changing over the last few years. Fine. Or if you want to be more specific, you can give, because we also get consumer inflation rates for each of few months. Fine. You can give month-wise data, also recent months, or broadly, some you can say. The idea here is you're also presenting additional data, and that too in a graphical way. Fine. So this is one way of value adding, and it is relevant also to the question. Fine. I mean, don't draw something which is not relevant again. Example, if they're asking about inflation, you're not drawing some GDP rate, can say a graph there. Fine. It should be linked. It should be relevant. It should be adding. It should be adding meaning. It should add something to the answer. Then this kind of a thing will definitely be appreciated by the evaluator here. And such graphs, for example, in Parliament, we have some let's say we have some discussion on the number of women in Parliament. There's an issue that women's representation in Indian Parliament is less than the global average, below the global average of women MPs in the parliaments as such in general in democracies. Fine. India, we still have considered in the Lok Sabha somewhere about how much of percent? Any idea? How much percentage women presently? Yeah. Let's say somewhere about 14% or 15%. I'm not sure. Some approximate data. Fine. So, but has it been the same always? It has changed. It was maybe a bit higher, lower, again higher. Or let us say if we talk about very popular topic in politics, in political issues, the criminalization of politics. We call it as criminalization of politics. Criminalization of politics means nothing but criminals entering politics, or MPs with criminal background, criminal cases becoming, can say, or entering this House of Legislature, Assembly, Parliament, etc., which we see more commonly nowadays. People with more stronger criminal profile have stronger chance of becoming successful in the elections. Fine. Bigger the profile, stronger the crimes, stronger the chance of winning. Fine. So with this, we see that there's a trend of criminalization. Even UPSC also has several times mains about criminalization of politics. Why is this increasing? What should be done to reduce this? How should we check this? Fine. So in such question, you can also take similar approach. For example, I myself used to draw this. For example, in the 15th Lok Sabha, or can say let's say 15th Lok Sabha, fine, or in the 16th Lok Sabha. Presently, we have which Lok Sabha? 17th or 18th? The presently recently sworn in was 18th, no? I guess 18th. 17th was done before the elections, right? So after recent elections, we have 18th Lok Sabha also. So if you look into the data, you can draw such bar graphs. In 15th Lok Sabha, there might have been some percentage. Roughly, I think it's 27 something. Later, it was made to 34. And 16th, 17th, we had some 43% of MPs with criminal records. 18th, I'm not sure. I think we just got the Parliament, let's say, being into function. Fine. So maybe once we get the data, we'll get an idea of that too. So this is how we can compare, can represent something in a visual, very visual appealing way, out of the box way. Fine. Yeah, but it's not so out of the box. Nowadays, even almost out of all the toppers, most of the toppers will be practicing these things. If you want to be among that, you can say extra advantage. If you want to be among the top of the league, you should also try to keep these things in mind. You should also try gradually. I mean, you can't do it overnight again. Just if you have some conscious idea that you should do it, you gradually try to take it up, you gradually implement and improve things. Clear? So this is something which you can also talk about. And apart from this, with the many ways to value add, we can also talk about, let's say, the most common thing, maps. Fine. Maps. You give some data, additional data, reports, or sometimes in the answers also you can draw some boxes here. You can mention some data, figures as such. Clear? It can be about GDP rates. It can be about anything, any percentage as such. Fine. And let's say, like in agriculture, you can talk about the production rates. You can talk about the let's say, the kind of, can say, growth rates, or how much amount of, can say, cropping pattern is, you can see, for example, how much amount of, can say, lands in South India have paddy as such. And I'm just giving some rough idea about how can you represent. Fine. So I call them as data boxes. So you can draw such data boxes when you have more information, more to tell to the examiner, but have less space, less scope. Just draw some data box, write some additional figures and facts. So, but that should be the ultimate thing should be kept in mind. It should be relevant. For example, if you're talking about, you can say, agricultural, you can say, production, you're not talking about some, you can say, some totally different concept here. It should be relevant. Relevance is required. Fine. You can do anything you want. You can practice anything. You can take up any experiment also, any experimental way to do value addition. But the ultimate thing to be kept in mind is it should not go out of relevance. It should not be relevant. It should be contextual. It should be meaningful. Here, that's something you can keep in mind. You can draw data points. You can give data boxes as such. Fine. Apart from this, maps. Yeah. When it comes to maps, you can talk about maps in almost all the subjects. You can try using maps, especially in the GS 1 to 3 papers. Fine. History also can draw maps. Fine. In geography, anyways, you must be knowing about the importance of maps. See, the most important area where maps are essential is geography. Geography means you can't miss maps at all. See, even if you don't do all the value addition, they won't deduct marks. They won't expect you to do all this. It's just addition, right? You are just giving additional offering. Example, if you take a pizza, you'll get toppings that you go for, sometimes you order additional toppings, additional cheese layer, additional cheese burst, that no will say. Even without that also the pizza is ready. Answer is like that. Without it also answer is ready. But if as you do addition, you'll get more chances of gaining that advantage. Fine. Or like how customers will like it, the examiner also will like it. Fine. So maps are very essential when it comes to geography. Geography is one area where if you don't draw maps as per relevance, or you can say if the map is expected and you're not drawing it, you lose marks. In any other area, if you don't do this addition, you won't lose as such directly, unless they ask it specifically from you, which UPSC won't do as such. Fine, UPSC will not ask you to draw maps, draw figures, draw boxes, draw flowcharts. It won't ask you directly. It's done as a additional, you can say, value additional representation, value additional, you can say, content. Clear? But geography is one area where you have to bring as many map-based understanding, these figures. For example, if they talk about, let's say, cyclones, you should draw a figure about the cyclone building process. We call it as cyclogenesis, cyclone formation, the frontogenesis, frontal interaction. For example, such things should be drawn. Even if it's not asked, they should definitely represent. If you don't represent, you will definitely lose marks, because that is the specific demand of the subject. Geography expects you to know this phenomena and also represent them visually. Because in geography, the visual analysis also is very important. Clear? Visual understanding is very important. Visual explanation is important. For example, in the geography books, you have a umpteen number of figures and diagrams. So that's expected of you to represent in the exam also. Clear? To make the examiner understand. You can't expect the examiner to know everything. You can't expect him to assume. There's one thing to keep in mind importantly. Don't assume that examiner will know things by default. Even if it's the simpler of simpler things, you should mention clearly. Don't expect that he'll know everything. I mean, yeah, apart from the ultimate basics, you know, for example, even as I said, inflation also should not take for granted. Okay, yeah, he'll know inflation is a UPSC evaluator. Of course, he should be knowing about inflation. Even though you should present in a simple and clear way. Fine, make everything clear. As I say, you should be like open. You're offering. It's like you're offering food in a platter. Everything should be properly kept ready and you can say directly consumable. You should not be giving a task to like you're giving some instant food packet. You boil this, he eat this, and then and then eat. Fine. It should be like a readily available or readily consumable kind of a thing. Clear? And apart from this, you can also talk about flow charts. Flow charts. For example, let's say there are 101 ways of drawing these flow charts again. For example, if you take an example of history. For example, history, you talk about chronological flow charts. For example, we talk about from ancient period, which period, let's say the sequence of various time periodizations. Fine. For example, if we talk about the medieval times, for example, if we talk about Delhi Sultanate, which dynasty was ruling first? First, the slave dynasty has come into power. Then we had, let's say, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids, Lodhis as such. So this one sequence of things, interconnected things. Flowcharts can be represented in those areas where you have to represent some interconnections, or can say, I think you must be aware of this, this if and when, yes or no, this flowcharts, right? Sometimes you say that if this happens, then this can be the outcome. So then it can be the outcome. For example, in economic, can draw this. For example, you can draw a flowchart of, let us say, if economic growth improves, there can be job creation, employment generation. With employment generation, there can be more savings. With more savings, there can be more investments. With more investments, again, there will be more economic growth. This one kind of flowchart, one kind of, you can say, this is called as a growth chart, growth cycle. Fine, this is also one type of flowchart, a circular flowchart. Clear? I mean, there are many ways you can represent such things. Fine. So again, where you gather all these things, where you can come up with these ideas. You think suddenly when you sit in the exam hall, this light will come, this God will enter your mind and bring all the ideas there. You'll get magical powers, superpowers. You'll get and do all those things in the exam. You can't. I'm not sure if you can do, but yeah, as practically we can't expect in the exam hall to do everything, all the magics. You have to first prepare. This part of preparation. While preparing only, you should collect such things, make such things ready in your notes or with your classroom discussions. You'll get to understand them and note them down. Keep them as as part of your notes preparation, and revise them, understand them, and use in the exam. See, in exam, I will tell you practically after writing so many mains in general also, as I've seen many people who are cleared or not cleared, you can't produce anything totally new there. Unless it is something very much internal, it means you have to, if you practice or revise so many times, only then you can represent easily. Fine. Very rarely, some 10-20% scope is there to try some new things, but most of it should be already practiced and tested. If you have been into sports, you follow sports, they'll say commonly that the world records are not broken on the final stage. For example, you see that in Olympics, there will be world records set broken as such. They're not breaking it for the first time there. They might have broken it several times before the day. Otherwise, they won't have, rarely it happens that they haven't done this before. What I'm trying to say is everything should be practiced before, prepared before, and then you're going for performance. You can't expect everything to be impromptu. Suddenly I'll do out of blue. I'll just that day I'll get I'll take glucose. I'll take some Red Bull. I'll get energy. I'll get wings and all. I'll do everything in the exam hall. That doesn't happen. So everything. What I'm trying to say is all these things should be consciously understood, prepared from now itself before you go for your. By the time you write the final mains exam. Fine. So through your daily answer writing, through your regular test series, you have to practice all these things. You can say once in a while, step by step. Fine. So got some broad idea about various things which we can do in the body of the answer, because body is very important. That's why you had to spend more time with it. Clear? Introduction we understood. Body parts we understand. What are various components? What about structuring? What about presentation? Fine. So got some brief idea, right? And also some of the major ideas of answer writing in general. How do you have to come up with the answer? I can say the ideology, philosophy of answer writing. I hope you got some ideas through the discussion. Fine. And we'll just to sum it up, we'll just go to the last part of the answer, conclusion. How do you conclude? Fine. Conclusion simple. You can say okay. Conclusion will say okay. Tata, bye bye, good night. We'll say what will say the examiner. Yeah, it's done. Enough of this answer. Let's go to the next answer. Yeah. So basically, conclusion. Yeah, summing up, summarizing. Largely, what to do is summarizing. See, there are many things which can be done, but one thing which should not be much done, I'll tell you. In the conclusion, don't write much completely new thing. Don't bring suddenly some new thing, new concept in the conclusion, which haven't talked in the main body. Suddenly don't jump to something totally different here. Fine. That's something you keep in mind. Try to summarize that something. Summarize significance, talk about significance of the idea, or let's say the topic which is given, the theme which is given in the question. Fine. And let's say it again depends on the GS paper specific aspect also. It will be paper specific again. For example, in history answers, you can have one kind of conclusion. You also look at some of the toppers copies, you'll understand this. They'll not write, as I said in the beginning also, in introduction also should be paper specific, subject specific, subtopic specific also. For example, in GS3 have some kind of introductions if you say. They'll also vary from internal security to environment to science-centric to economic agriculture. Fine. So with changing subject also, the nature of conclusions can change. Fine. For example, if you talk about GS to GS3 mostly, you'll get a lot of scope to conclude with, you can say these kind of, you can say the provisions of, let's say, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG goals. You can talk about SDG goals. SDG have, how many SDG goals we have? 17. You can link it to something. For example, if it's a question on, let's say, poverty alleviation, fine, or hunger problem in India, which is usually asked in GS2. Every year you'll get at least question on poverty or hunger, most commonly asked. So in the conclusion, you link it to, you can say that if we follow so and so efforts, like in the main body, we're talking about problems, challenges, the solutions. So in conclusion, will say, so if these efforts, if these measures are implemented concertedly in an effective way, in a structured manner, you can we'll have India will be able to achieve SDG goal so and so, and make India inclusive. You can say make our country inclusive one, or can say we'll achieve the goals of inclusive growth, making India more inclusive. Fine. Inclusive, sustainable, and you can say prosperous country as such, prosperous future as such, or you can link to many other can say broader policy goals. If you follow these speeches of Modi ji or President and can say these dignitaries, you'll get some ideas. Nowadays we talk about Vikasit Bharat, being a Vishwa Guru, Atmanirbhar Bharat and all. Fine. We talk about $5 trillion economy. Fine. We talk about achieving, you can say, higher sustainable growth rates. Fine, we want to be the technological powerhouse, all these things. We wanted to be space powerhouse, all these things. So those ideas can also be linked in the conclusion. So link to the goals, broader goals. Conclusion, you will talk about. So once these things are done, what can we achieve in future? What kind of a nation, what kind of economy, what kind of society can become? That can also be one element in the conclusions, which is more likely possible in GS2 and 3 answers. Fine, in polity, constitution, governance, as well as economic agriculture, more likelihood of such approach can be used. Linking it to policy goals, policy objectives as such, or national development objectives can be linked, or global development objectives like SDGs can also be linked here. Yeah? So this is about it. And in example, IR also we have some, for example, like being paper specific, it can also be topic specific. For example, IR we talk about, IR I think not covered in the class. So once you cover, you'll get an idea. Let's say IR will say, see, the objective of international relations is also always to maintain a peaceful, strong, stable world order as such. So such things can be mentioned in the conclusion too. So through this, maybe you can achieve a stable, democratic, multipolar world order, like so and so ideas you can give. So what I'm just trying to give you, anyways, brief idea here is also try to design conclusions as per the subject. Fine. Need not be very much uniform across all papers. Better if you have more unique conclusions, it will add value. Fine. And again, if you have, let's say, the worst of worst cases, if you don't have time at all, maybe you can compromise slightly on conclusions. Fine, but not completely. Slight compromise is okay, but not completely avoiding conclusions. Fine, because if you avoid conclusion altogether, it would feel like a abruptly ended you can say conversation. Suddenly you're stopping it. Fine, suddenly you have reached till a peak and suddenly has fallen down. So it seems like a, you can say, incomplete communication. As I said, answer writing is about communication between you and the exam evaluator. Fine, so you can't completely abruptly stop the conversation, right? For example, if you're talking to someone and suddenly stop and you leave the place, what kind of impression it leaves on the other person about you? Somewhere they'll feel that maybe you were not, so your conveying was not clear, maybe you don't have proper knowledge or something. Maybe it will not leave a positive impression about your personality. Similarly, it also will be in the case of answer writing. Fine. Yeah, but in rare cases, it can be the last question, 18th, 19th, 20th question, last few questions, not having time at all, struggling with time management. Once here and there, it's okay. The last few questions, to some extent, it's understandable. But there also, it is ideal not to do that. The ideal cases, don't do that. Don't skip conclusions. Even there, you try to manage. So go through let's say through enough and continuous, consistent writing practice, you can improve your answer writing time management. Fine. So here, apart from these basic areas, let's go to let's talk about the time management also briefly. Fine. In this session, let's also talk about some time management elements. Clear? So time management, we talk about. So generally, if you look into GS, we have 15 markers and 10 markers, right? 2 markers and 10 markers. So how many 10 markers we have? How many 50 markers we have? 10 each. 10 markers, 10 50 markers we have in the exam. So total 250 marks, right? So 50 markers on an average, you should spend 11 minutes. And 10 markers, you should on an average spend 6 to maximum of 7 minutes per answer. So how much total? 180 minutes. Fine. 11 tens, 110 and 70 minutes here. Total 3 hours. In fact, somewhere in between, you won't actually get proper 180 minutes also there. The signing attendance and all these things will go here and there. Some 3-4 minutes you lose in here. So somewhere you can, let's say, you can get eventually some 176, 177 minutes as such. Fine. So out of this, you have to distribute and structure a plan. Or can say the planning of time here. Fine. So, and how do you reach this level and stage of finishing answer in those specific time? It's not an easy task as such. It takes a lot of practice, lots and lots of practice. Sometimes months and years of practice to reach this stage. Fine. So for this, when you're in the beginning phase, I would say don't worry too much about it. Fine. In the beginning phase, I will ask you to come with answers which are relevant, coherent, qualitative answers. Focus on the body, the content aspects. Fine. Gradually, this is the quantitative aspect. This you can gradually improve to. But let's say if someone is giving mains this year immediately, then it's a different case. They have to focus entirely on this. Content that can even be secondary also to some extent. If you're not finishing paper in time, there's no point of writing even great content. If you're missing out on questions, you're almost missing you can say you are halfway losing the battle here. Fine. For example, like I had a friend, I had a very good friend named, he got all India 5th rank. My very good friend, we both gave the exam together. In fact, the exam also we sat very peculiarly, just while let's say I just sat behind him in the mains exam, not the institute test series as such. In the main exam also we sat together. We had interview also on the same day, same slot. We went for the interview also on the same slot, and unfortunately I didn't get through, and he got into the rank list at a very good rank. Fine. So what I observed him as I've seen his journey very closely, what I've seen him as, he would never miss out any question. How many ever tests he has practiced? Every test, he never missed a single question. Sometimes I used to do a mistake that I used to write 70-80 questions in a very good quality, leave 2-3. If you compare the quality of questions of those 17-18 I write, they'll be actually better than the 17-18 questions which he writes. But what he is also doing is also not missing any question or finishing the paper completely. Fine. And he is the person which I've seen that he will strictly follow. He'll like a robot. He'll follow this. His approach of writing was also like a very mechanical, objective way, and that's actually should be also. That's what it should reach eventually. Fine. We should be prepared. I mean, it's like you can say answering is like a muscle training, or you can say these gyms and all you go. It's like how you make yourself fit and strong. Similarly, answer writing will become like a muscular thing. It's like a brain's response. It should be internalized within you. Clear? The more you practice, the more flexible, the more agile, the more can say effective you'll get with it. Fine. So only then you can reach the stage. This is a matter of constant practice. Fine. Constant and guided practice. You should have some guide or mentor to give you timely suggestions and improvements. Clear? So this is broadly about it. And for this, I would say the best way to start is daily answer writing. Write daily answers. Fine. Take some questions from your faculties, mentors, and all. From institutions also, you can do daily answer writing. When preparing for next year, the best way is to join a test series now. Join a test series for the next year. We call them as the year-long test series. Or someone is giving this year, we have a different program for that too. Okay? I think for people who are writing mains this year, so we have a program starting from 14th of this month. LaExcellence IAS Academy starting a mains answer writing program. It's a series, you can say, which covers all the GS areas, which is given both in offline and online mode. Starting with 14 July, the paper the test series covers essentially 8 sectional tests. So each paper has 2 specific sectional tests. We'll have 4 full-length tests and also 3 tests on essay paper. Clear? I hope you know this. How many papers we have in the mains exam? 1 essay, 4 GS, 2 optional paper, 7, 2 more 2 languages, English and in Indian language. 9 you write actually. 2 won't get counted. I mean to say English and other language. You should not fail. That's it. You should not fail. You should at least be able to pass. Qualification papers they are. They're not competitive papers. The marks won't be added. But unfortunately, if you fail them, your 7 papers would not be even checked. If you fail the language papers, your 7 papers won't be sent for evaluation. Clear? So that really happens. But there are still some very, very unfortunate people who miss out on those language papers. Very rarely it happens, but still it does happen. There are people yearly who miss out on the language papers. Just maybe they'll take it for granted, too much of grantedness. Or otherwise, believe me, it's not so difficult. It's not at all challenging to clear them. It's very, very much doable. Just you have to be at least conscious and focused during those 3 hours in the exam. Fine. If some people have a problem with their mother tongue and consider their regional language, I think English will be more used to. So those slight bit of practice here and then. Again, you not to spend days and weeks for that. Hardly few hours at times can have some brief practice. It's very much doable. Nothing I can say challenging as such. Clear? So this is about the test series program, which will also be supplemented, supported by very effective one-to-one personalized mentorship. Fine. So this is also something which you can avail if you're aiming for this mains. And we have mentioned the fee structure, and you can also reach out to the team if you're looking for some enrollments and admissions. Clear? So apart from this, let's come back. Yeah. So talking about the aspects of answer writing. So if you have any questions, so we might wind up the session for now. So if you have any questions, I'll address, and anyways, we'll meet soon. So next time we'll be meeting would be for a answer writing session live. We call it as the live answer writing session, where we'll actually take these questions. Let's say take some previous questions or any test series ones. I will structure them, I will decipher them, I'll break them down, I'll write them down in front with you. Fine. So that will say all this gyan which you have gained today, this ideas, philosophy, approaches, all this will apply in practice. Fine. You understand if you have followed them so far. We'll see how to bring them in exercise, in practice. Yeah. So that's what we'll focus on. So any questions and doubts if you have for me to address, you can ask me. Anything as such. The stage is open even for the online students. If anyone is following the class on YouTube, you are also welcome to pose any question or doubts. Yeah. Have any questions to ask? No questions? All set. Tomorrow we'll go for mains. Yeah. Vocabulary. Okay, fine. Good. Yeah. Vocabulary asking to what extent we can? Right.
But in some of the advices or suggestions, the other.
Yeah, I get it. But see, I would ask you to trust me also, but there is no need for high-end vocabulary or language. Need not be high-end, or need not be like too sophisticated. Shakespeare in English is not required. Shakespeare and Shashi Tharoor in English is not required as such here. Normal, average, like to what a high school student level English is more than enough. High school level of vocabulary is more than enough, I would say. Fine. What you must have studied from school and college is more than enough. Trust me, people with very, very average vocabulary have cleared more often than not. Fine. So you don't worry about the vocabulary requirements. Keep it simple, keep it normal. Fine. Keep it, you can say, average, moderate. Moderate is enough. Should not be too poor. It should not be like too difficult to frame points and answers also. I mean, vocabulary should be at a moderate and decent level. Decent level is required. At least I would say a high school level of knowledge is more than enough. High school level of vocabulary level is more than enough. Clear? So don't worry too much about it. Don't worry about using some high-end like flowery language and all. It's not so required. Maybe to some extent, vocabulary, a slightly better vocabulary can be used in essays and maybe our ethics answers to some extent. And that also, I would say, use where you can minimize your time and space. Instead of writing one sentence, if you can replace that sentence with 1 or 2 words, that is the better way. But that should not be too difficult or too complicated for the reader to get. So sometimes it's also about ego. If the evaluator will feel that, okay, I don't know probably these words and all, he's not able to understand, he might, I mean, they won't take as such, but yeah, they might some way feel that, okay, somewhere too complicated, or can say some way if the ego gets hurt, it won't happen. Any sane mind won't do that. But just to say, even to make your job easier, make their job easier, as I said, it's all about making their job easy. Don't complicate too much of the vocabulary. Fine. Keep it average, understandable, easily understandable. In essays, you can probably try to use a bit of better vocabulary. Again, there are also no requirement for doing too much of flowery, decorative, poetic language as such. You can again keep it simple, and trust me, simple things will work more often. They're more sustainable also. They're more safe also. Fine. Sometimes these grand experiments can fail, or they can be grand success or grand failure. So, but the most safe thing is keeping it in balance. Fine. Don't overdo too much. Don't do mistakes also. I mean, see, grammar also can ask in the same context. Grammatically, you need not be like the best of the best grammar. I mean, to say best with linguistics and grammar as such. Again, don't make too many mistakes. Don't do silly mistakes. Don't completely change the meaning of the sentence. Even if it is not very much grammatically perfect, they won't put your answer in Grammarly app and say how many mistakes you have done, right? So they will commonly read your answer. They won't mind so much unless you are doing a lot of silly. You can say you are totally changing the meaning of the term or of this sentence, or you can say of the description. Unless it's totally fine. Moderate, average English language skills, grammatical skills are enough, good enough. Don't worry about that. We've seen people who come from regional language backgrounds, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil. Their English is very much average. Fine, they still managed often. They still have got very, very good ranks. Fine. And yeah, once you read, you must be doing your newspapers regularly. As you do papers regularly, also gradually pick up better language skills. Over time, will definitely build up. Fine. So don't worry about this. So by the time you go for mains exam, I'm sure most of you, if you do this, if you are sincere, consistent, regular with the preparation, will definitely reach the levels which are expected. Fine. Apart from this, one more thing I'll talk about, maybe that's a thing for other session again. Notes making. Notes making is also very important for answer writing. The notes making should be in such a way which should support your answer writing. In fact, the notes making also should be in such a framework which will be easy for writing answers out of it. In fact, as we discuss the parts of the answers here, if more or less you make notes on the same lines, it will be very easy to translate in the exam. The notes is also made in this, some introductory points, some main points, let's say in conclusion, what kind of ideas you can use. If notes also is to some extent done in such a way, not exactly like the IBC format, to some extent to support, let's say you are clearly mentioning the dimensions with subheadings and headings in your notes also, that will make it easy for representing in the answers. Fine. That's something I will talk about, how to make notes. So one thing I want to tell you is, there's a linkage between notes making and answer writing. There's a linkage between notes making, revision, and answer writing, very much interlinked. The better these two other dimensions get, answer writing will also get better. Because answer writing is not just about physically writing. It's not just physically moving your hand there. It's also about connection between a mental processing and your writing aspect. So more you process clearly, means with revisions, with understanding, with clarity of thought, clarity of concepts, if it's better, answer writing will be smoother. Here. So then also we'll get more speed. It's not just about physically move your hands, but that's not about physical movement. More or less on an average, everyone has similar physical movement of hands, unless there's any other, I can say, issue. Fine. So that's largely about the session again, guys. So we'll meet again often. Yeah, we will have some live answering sessions soon. So wherein we'll talk more about specifics of the answer writing. Fine, we'll take some questions in live. Fine. So I might have to take a break now. Yeah, I'll take a leave. So I'll see you sometime again. So if any doubts, you can just reach out to me. Maybe in the coming days from tomorrow I'll be available. So just if you want to reach, I think you have my contact, or you can just ask the team here. They'll reach out to me. If you want to meet me personally also, you can take their help. Fine. So they'll arrange a session between, appointment between you and me. Clear? So all the best. I'll see you guys again. Yeah.